Challenging times in Victoria. We're joined by the member for Warrandyte, Ryan Smith. Welcome back to the studio, TheInformer. I just want to talk about very quickly what happened overnight, a marathon session in Parliament. Finished, I think the decision came through about 2 in the morning. What was the decision?
Well, the decision was, unfortunately, to give the government another 6 months to extend their powers into the lives of
They were seeking a 12-month extension.
Yeah, they were. Now, we've got a government that's demonstrably shown that it's unable to control the pandemic and unable to address things like the increased unemployment that we're seeing, the businesses that are shutting, even to address the issues of mental health that we're seeing that becoming more and more prevalent over the last months. We've chosen as a parliament, with the support of parties such as the Greens, the Reason Party and the Animal Justice Party, we've chosen as a parliament, with those people's help, to give the government this extra 6 months, which is a huge, potentially, impost on the lives of Victorians.
Isn't it remarkable that the Greens, who were so quick to condemn the government only a matter of weeks ago over the imposed lockdown of the towers at Flemington and also North Melbourne, suddenly seeing an opportunity to support the government in this particular quest to get an extension. I would have thought a fairer extension would have been three months. Come and prosecute your case again in Parliament, where the whole Parliament can understand what's going on. Yep. And if it stands up, again, provide the extension required. But again, 6 months.
Well, there's a couple of things to take out from what you've said. And firstly, you're right, the Greens were amongst the biggest critics around how the government handled that public tower lockdown. So while criticising the government for that, they've now chosen to give the government, in fact, extended powers to perhaps do something similar down the track. So that in itself is kind of difficult to understand. Secondly, the issues around the powers that have been given to the government are now, as we've said, 6 months with, again, Parliament not being required to sit. Now, the opposition took the proposal forward that it should be a month-by-month proposition with Parliament, both houses, the People's House, telling the government whether it was okay or not, or ticking off on it. Now, when you think about it, in the lower house, the government has the numbers. In the upper house, they only need 3. If the proposition is that we go month by month and all the government has to do is convince 3 people out of their party, who are not in their party, I should say, to agree with them, why is that such a difficult proposition? So I think we've got to a point where we've had 6 months, or the government's had 6 months to get it right. A little bit of oversight now shouldn't go astray. I think that's what people expect.
I would have expected it to be, after what we've heard over the last few weeks, after a number of missteps, especially the quarantine fiasco. I would have thought this would have been an ideal opportunity to see just that. And again, like a number of people, I was surprised. And I wasn't surprised that they went to a marathon session to get it through, but I was surprised. I would have expected them to go back for 2 or 3 days and haggle. And again, disappointing.
If I can say, the part of the process of the upper house is that the members go into what's called committee, where they actually can question the government on any bill, not just this one, but on any bill. They can question the government on how the legislation will be applied in real life. The government used their numbers to shut down that questioning. So although we went till 2 o'clock in the morning, we actually had a lot more questions to ask the government, but the government stopped that inquiry by the opposition. So they didn't even want to talk about in the Parliament about how these emergency measures might be applied in real life.
It fascinates me. How did the Health Minister do overnight in the Parliament?
She had to even go back to her advisors to ask them on a number of occasions what certain clauses meant. Now, it wasn't a big bill. I think there were 9 clauses in all. She didn't even have a complete understanding of how the bill would operate. And one thing came out to me in my thinking about this. There's a lot of people who say they don't have confidence in the government anymore. When the government is asking for 12 months, they got 6, but when they're asking for 12, doesn't that demonstrate that they don't have confidence in themselves to get the pandemic under control?
And I think those very words were uttered overnight, in that there is no surety that they will be able to control what's going on over the next 12 months. They're not sure that this state of emergency will be contained until midway through 21.
Yeah, so we're getting to a stage where our Christmas and our summer and beyond is going to be taken from us as well.
Ryan Smith is our guest in the Informer studio, the member for Warrandyte. Let me run this past you. I got a call this morning from a cleaning company, and they said to me the worst case has been confirmed. One of their professional staff has come up positive to COVID. They reported it to WorkSafe on the 29th of August as mandated, right? It's 5 days on, still no call from DHHS contact tracers, nor any follow-up from WorkSafe. How can this be continuing? Well, how would you respond to someone from a professional side of the business saying, we're doing everything we can, we're following the law and the protocols, and the DHHS is still, and WorkSafe, not meeting the commitment? What's going on?
Well, the hotel quarantine issue has of course been the headline debacle of this government, but contact tracing is actually one of the principal, if not the principal way to stop this pandemic in its tracks.
Yep.
The gold standard is the way New South Wales is operating, where they're contacting people within 24 hours. We are getting constant reports, despite what the Premier says at his press conferences about the fact that they're doing really well in this space. We are getting constant reports coming through the media that people are waiting 2, 3, 5, in one occasion 22 days before people are being contacted. So the government's demonstrably failed in this area as well. And one of the things that came out in the news a little while ago, we know that various health officials from other states have been seconded to help Victoria. They have been aghast at the lack of resources, the lack of funding and the lack of expertise that's available in Victoria. Now, governments make conscious decisions where they put their money, where they budget them. You know, each yearly budget shows where they're going to allocate their resources and therefore their priorities. The fact that last year and up to where we are now, the government's made a conscious choice to underfund and under-resource their health areas has led to this limited contact tracing that they're able to do now, and it is putting people at risk. It's no wonder things have exploded, George.
Another area of a real concern for me is we're hearing from all manner of professionals that we have a mental health epidemic.
Huge.
Now, we also, interestingly, out of nowhere, got a coroner's report into the number of suicides. It was almost as if they needed to run this flag up and say to everyone, no, you don't need to panic. The numbers of people committing suicide is within the norms and within the numbers that we had in the last year. Now, what are we to make of that? Can we be assured that the numbers we're being given are indeed accurate and representative?
I'll say that they're at odds with what I'm hearing and what my colleagues are hearing. Even Professor Patrick McGorry, who is a well-respected expert in this field, says that the presentations of self-harm in our hospitals is up by 33%. We know anecdotally, we know from our constituents and our communities that levels of depression has risen. This proposition that suicides have not gone up, as I said, I'm not going to criticise the coroner, but it is at odds with what we're hearing.
The anecdotal evidence alone from one of the agencies we spoke to recently that have created a new app called, I think it's Cyber Clinic, where they're identifying people who are in trouble, who are battling at the moment, and finding them assistance as quickly as possible. They're saying their number of people reaching out for their resource is off the charts.
Yeah, and all those agencies are saying the same thing. And I had a briefing with the University of Sydney that their work showed that the pandemic and the subsequent government restrictions are increasing suicides by up to 13%, with an extra 10% in regional areas. So they're modelling that now, they're modelling that over the next 5 years. The academics are telling us that the suicide rates are going up. The agencies that look after these issues are telling us that they're getting more and more calls.
Yep.
Our community are telling us that they're experiencing these issues. It just doesn't gel. It doesn't match what the coroner is officially telling us, and that it should give us cause to wonder how accurate they are.
Ryan Smith, as always, thank you very much for taking the time and for joining us on The Informer and trying to break down some of the things that have caused enormous angst, especially in Victoria during this time of COVID.
Thank you very much.